The New York Jets are now on the board.
Okay, Jet fans, Darrell Revis.
Being in New York has been one of the greatest blessings.
Zach's Fifth Avenue ran that one right now.
The New York Jets select.
Welcome to another episode of NFL Draft Preview. Ethan Greenberg, Dane Brugler of The Athletic. We're talking Senior Bowl winners. Let's start at a position where a lot of Jets fans are locked in on as the Jets enter the offseason. That's tight end. Trey McBride, Jeremy Ruckert, both on the national team. You have Jeremy Ruckert as your week's winner. Why is that? And do you think that he closed the gap at all between himself and McBride?
Well, I think that for scouts that came into the week, maybe not all in on Ruckert or, thinking that he had a chance to really be a top 3 tight end in this class, I think he probably helped himself for those scouts because of the way he moved as a route runner, how he caught the ball skills were terrific, consistently catching the ball outside his frame. Fortunately, he was there. He was present in practice for the third practice, but he was not participating. Just a minor injury held him out, and then he didn't play in the game. So we only got 2 practices out of Ruckert, but I thought he was terrific.
Trevor Penning, I feel like, I know we've talked about him each of our first 2 episodes in 2022. The first one, you were excited to see him, and then last week you were talking about how maybe he didn't have quite the week you were expecting him to have, but he's still considered a winner of the Senior Bowl in your eyes. Why do you say that?
You never know what you're going to get when you're talking about FCS players going up to facing consistent FBS talent like this at the Senior Bowl. And there were times, no question, when pass rushers gave him trouble, and he was. I don't know if he was just trying to overpower everybody and not rely on his hands and just kind of use his body, but his technique was off. But at the same time, when you just watch him move in space and you realize, okay, the foot quickness is there, the power is there, the frame and length are there, and oh yeah, he is the meanest dude out there, and he does not apologize for it. There are many times where he got into a little bit of a shouting match, a little bit of a scuffle with pass rushers who weren't too happy being thrown to the ground. And you'd rather a guy be a little too mean and try to reel it back as opposed to being a little too passive. So I thought Penning did have a good week, even though it was a little up and down.
One guy I do want to talk about a little more, we talked about him last week, is Jermaine Johnson out of Florida State, because the Jets coaching staff did not coach him. He was a part of the American team. Could Jermaine Johnson, in your eyes, end up being a top 15 pick and, hypothetically speaking, be a potential option for the Jets at 10?
I think so. I think that when you look at this pass rush group of prospects, you've got Aiden Hutchinson, Kayvon Thibodeau at the top. And then I think that next tier of pass rushers, Jermaine Johnson's right there with guys like David Ajabo and Karl Loftus from Purdue. Guys that are maybe just not quite on that top tier, but they're really good prospects. And I think where Jermaine Johnson has a little bit of an edge is I think you just know what you're getting with him. He's can play the run. He can get after the quarterback. The length, the agility, the active hands. Jermaine Johnson, I don't think it would take much for a team to talk themselves into him as a top 15 pick.
Another guy that Jets fans didn't see, or that the Jets coaching staff didn't get to coach on a day in, day out basis, who was on the American team, your winner at corner for the week, Tariq Woolley. What made him the winner, and what is his game, and why do you like him as a prospect?
Well, first of all, he won weigh-ins, 6'3", over 200 pounds for a corner, pretty impressive size. And he's a former wide receiver, so he's only been playing corner for a few years now, and he was up to the task against these wide receivers. For a guy that's that long, has those long legs, you worry about his change of direction, his ability to play sudden with some short area quickness at receiver, but I thought he did a nice job. He stayed composed, he stayed patient out of his stance, and he did a really nice job anticipating routes and staying on top of them. I'm working on my top 100 right now, my updated top 100. He's a lock for my top 100. It's just now, where do I want to put him? How early do you want to put a guy like this who has still room to grow, still room to develop, but, just check boxes in terms of the things you can't coach with the length and the speed.
Let me ask you this. It's a real shot in the dark here, or you might have to throw a dart to answer this question. But after watching the national practices, after seeing who was on the Jets team, the way that the Jets like to operate on offense and defense and even special teams, is there any match that you particularly like, whether that's rounds 1 through 7 that you're like, you know what? I think this player would be really interesting on the Jets for any reason.
All the offensive linemen, maybe every single one of them. Just figure out how to plug them in. Yeah, I think that would make sense. Dominique Robinson. Like a guy in the 3rd or 4th round. If you're looking for, let's just say the Jets in the first 2 rounds, they address wide receiver and corner and offensive line, and they don't address pass rusher yet. If they're going to look for a pass rusher in the 3rd or 4th round, I think Dominique Robinson makes a ton of sense with. Just kind of his arrow's pointing up, his trajectory is pointing up as a pass rusher and what he offers. I think he's got the athleticism that the Jets want at that position, but he also has a projectable body and a guy that's going to get better and better. So that one kind of stood out to me as someone that made sense. Same thing with Boye Mafe from Minnesota. He might go higher than that after his combine performance. He's going to blow up the combine. He's going to have a 42-inch vert and he is a freaky dude. Another guy that showed up in the game in a big way. I thought I had a solid week of practice, but in the game, he really showed up with his ability to rush off the edge. I think he needs to get better as a run defender. That's kind of, the hang up with Mafe. But as a pass rusher, we know he could bring it. And especially at the combine, he's really going to be someone that creates buzz based on his results. So, I think some of these pass rushers really stood out as maybe being a fit for that Jets scheme.
That's all we have on this week's episode of NFL Draft Preview. Dane, as always, thanks a lot. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, Ethan.